I appreciate you coming on and have a chat with my podcast. That's episode 36 with Rick Hamlin.
Wow.
Yeah. Am I sounding clear to you, Rick?
Yeah.
Perfect. That's great. Yeah, look, Rick, funny, we're talking about your book, Even Silence is Praise, which is due to be released soon. Is that right?
Yeah, it comes out. Pub date is February 8th.
Perfect. Oh, sounds good. And you know what? I've been meaning to get someone on to talk about this particular topic, actually, because I have my own story of I'm a Christian, and it's a controversial one among Christians, as you probably well know. The whole meditation thing.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about your book and how, well, first of all, how you became a Christian and why Christianity.
Well, I grew up in the Presbyterian church. First of all, I had parents who were, wonderful faith people. And my mom actually went to one of those early Billy Graham rallies, way back in the 40s, late 40s, and this is in Southern California. But my father had this wonderful faith. He would say grace every night at dinner. That was a really wonderful way to sort of learn prayer practice, because he would put everything into his graces. A friend came for dinner one night and called it the 6 o'clock news, because not only we hear Dad pray for whatever he heard on the radio as he was driving home, please pray for our president, please pray for our troops, but he would also pray for us, please play for Rick and his piano recital that's coming up. And so having that sense of that we could speak openly about anything to God. And I remember, I think it was ninth grade or something, and I had to lead there was the youth service. And somebody said, well, why don't you lead the prayer, Rick? And I did. And I got up there and I said, hi, God. And back in the day, but I felt that close. What a gift to be able to get that from those parents.
Yeah. And that is amazing as well, because so often I think when people hear praying, they think of Hail Mary, full of grace, and they don't think about what they're saying, and they're reciting it. And I think that is like the origin, like even the Our Father, powerful prayer. But when you take it in context, he was talking about the current day and what he was going through, and it's a great prayer to say. But still, I tell my son, when you're praying, be appreciative. You can ask for things also, but be appreciative of. This is what I do every night. I first have my own words. I don't just recite 3 or 4 prayers that I heard in church. It's thank you for this day. I appreciate my youth, my health, my family's health. Please let tomorrow be stress free if possible. This kind of thing. Yeah, well, and I think that's great that you had that from earlier on. You could see your father saying that. Our household didn't really practice any kind of faith. So it's amazing that you had an insight in that from the get-go.
Yeah. And we also, when you think about when Jesus is praying, how he uses Abba, the Aramaic, which is very personal. It's not the formal language. It's the vernacular. It's not Hebrew. And I think, that's sort of one of those models we have here. But then, this other part of my prayer life, and it's built on that foundation of what as you said, controversial meditation. But what I have seen is that there's this huge historical background in the faith of, and sometimes a better word for it might be contemplative prayer, sort of digging deeper. But are you familiar with a Lectio Divina?
No.
Oh, that's interesting. This goes back to the 12th century. And it's the idea you take a passage of scripture and then you read it, you meditate, which is sort of a discursive thing. Meditate, what does this mean? What does it mean for me? Then you go into prayer, you pray it. And then the last step is contemplatio, contemplation, which is you're giving yourself over to the biggest things there, and it's sort of closing out the noise in your head to open you up to what God might be saying to you.
Yeah, and that's the origin of the Latin word for meditation, isn't it? It's to pray, to study. It's along them lines, isn't it?
Yeah, that lines. And so really what has happened for us now is that the word meditation, usually means, the Zen Buddhist idea of meditation. What in older, traditional language, contemplation is probably the closer to that idea. May the words of the mouth and the meditations of my heart, that line from the Psalms, that's more that sort of, I'm thinking about the words. But there's this other step, which is to sort of finally hold that thought and hold it in your heart and connect to God sort of on an open level.
Mm-hmm. Well, can you tell me a bit about the origins of meditation through Christianity? Because oftentimes I've read, in the New Testament, Jesus reclused to the mountains by himself in silence. And, he went and had this solitude where no one was around. And I also found that interesting because it's quite different to our typical prayer. If people go to church on a Sunday, they're kneel, they stand up and this, that, and the other. I'm not putting down the church, but I often wondered, meditation, I know a lot of people believe meditation in New Age, and there is obviously a different origin there with the Buddhist Hindu kind of side of things, which is maybe a different, and we can talk about that in a minute. But the origins of meditation in Christianity, that's how they prayed back in them days, wasn't it?
Well, and also when you think about their world, it was a much quieter world. I'm also constantly reminded. I mean, when we read the Bible, but for centuries you didn't read the Bible, you listened to the Bible. How did you get scripture? You heard it, and and the Psalms, they were sung. So in that world, there's this heritage of words coming to us with silence. I love what you're saying exactly about, Jesus went off by himself to pray. And I always think, well, gosh, he's God's son. He could talk to God anywhere. But he had that need in himself, in a busy, people crowding around him, to get by himself. And that's a model for us too. I mean, we got phones. We don't have to have people. We've got phones crowding around us. So can we not model ourselves on Jesus and step away? Maybe give up the phone for half an hour, put it aside.
And you talk about that in some of the chapters of your book, don't you? Near the end, of put the phone away for half an hour. And it's harder than, not that it's harder, but it's constantly on the go. It's always lighting up. People are lost without it. I'm not just saying people, because I'm as bad, a lot of the times. My emails are on my phone. I'm running around. I'm always watching it. If you go down the end of the garden without your phone, you feel like, well, what if someone rang, and I remember when being a kid and it was only the windy phone, in the front door, and that was it. And people got by. People were fine. People visited each other more. There was more of a community element to things, because now it's good enough just to text someone, and that's communication, where people used to go. Yeah. But what do you think happened that changed the church from this meditation to the kneel and pray? Why has it evolved to such a stricter regimen?
I think part of it is just a reflection of our own busyness. Okay, I think I can manage an hour on Sundays, so I'm going to be there. And I think there's this, dynamism of teachers, ministers, pastors, okay, we got to give you everything we can in that hour. Or, okay, I could go to a Bible study, but it's not going to be very long. Okay, so we end up talking a lot, and I think it's that sense of the time pressure. I don't want to dispute, the value of that, but let's not lose what is also part of our heritage, which is, doing silence in community. I mean, think about, the monks, our beloved, monks, the nuns in the Middle Ages. I really feel like, we can save the world that way. It's going to sound insane, but by just, and here's sort of the metaphor I have in my head for it. When I was a little kid and my mom would say to me, listen to me, you got to listen to me, get quiet to listen to me. So, how can I actually listen to God without getting quiet?
And that's interesting because a lot of people, I think, there's a fall off from church and there's a fall off from faith even. And I think people are just so consumed by their busy lives to stop and think much about it. You drive down the road and it's that road, you have to get to work, you have to get there, and there's a bigger picture surrounding you, the globe, you're healthy, everything's working in sync around you, your environment, and we don't take time to think about the bigger picture really. We're just tunnel visioned. And you get home and it's the phone, it's the laptop, it's something, it's always something. And we're gone that way that we can't be bored. We can't tolerate sitting down for a minute or two without grabbing the phone or without looking this up or without turning the TV on. We can't sit in that silence. And I want to tell you a bit of my journey of why I was interested in speaking to you today, because I became a Christian about 5 years ago. I had well, I would say I had an experience, like everyone might say, that really put me in a position where I had to say, like this, I can't deny that experience. So I need to dig into this because I wasn't going to dispute it. And I went to Israel. I went with my book. I sat where they said this happened, and I got rebaptized in the River Jordan. I did the whole lot, and I built and built as it went along. Last year in work, I changed my job recently. Last year in work, I got very stressed out, and I went to a herbalist, and he said to me, did this body talking. He said to me, you need to take time to download a mindfulness app, or, take time to sit in a quiet room for 15 minutes and just relax with your thoughts. And I did that. And all I did was sit up straight and be quiet for a little while. And I felt a bit better. And I said, but this is against my religion, is it not? So I was confused. I was kind of like looking up, researching this. So people were saying, yeah, but yoga is against your religion, and there's a type of meditation that's against your religion, but there's a type of meditation. This is the quote I came up against by Richard Foster. Eastern meditation is attempt to empty the mind, and Christian meditation is attempt to fill the mind and meditate on God's words.
Yeah.
So I said, that's interesting. So because I couldn't figure why something that felt right and healthy would be wrong, would be bad, if you know what I mean. I was wrecked tired, I was stressed out, my cortisol levels were through the roof. 15, 20 minutes of sitting in silence really helped me. It was like getting an hour's sleep. And I went back fresher. So that interested me, and I wanted to get in contact with people. But I want to put this to you. I had a guest on last year who had a near-death experience, and he's quite a famous guest. He was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. He's done a good few books. He was an atheist neurologist who then fell very ill into a coma and had this near-death experience and came back and said, there's definitely more to this, So he spoke to me, but he also said to me, there's this app called Sacred Acoustics. Listen to it, and it's a frequency vibration. But I had a bad experience from that. And I looked up earlier on today, listen to frequencies. Christians, is it okay to listen to frequencies? And a lot of comments in the YouTube were saying that they had bad experiences also, almost like spiritual attacks. So my question to you, do you feel as though there's certain vibrations or there's a certain line you must walk when you do this meditation to avoid um, the negative spiritual energy?
The well, God loves us, and God's always there reaching out for us. The the noise is a problem, and you found something to address that. But the idea of emptiness, I hear what you're saying, but there's also, here's something in well, the title of my book, even it's a line from one of the Psalms: "To you, Lord, even silence is praise." And somebody goes, "Well, why would silence be praise?" To me, it's that reaction. Okay, when somebody loves something, they clap, they make a loud noise. But if something really hits you, there's this silence that enters you. Or think of your best friend. That's the person that you can feel so comfortable with. You can be silent. So that's the kind of silence we're talking about. It's not the silence of absence. Maybe that would be better. It's a silence of presence, and feeling that presence. And also, so often people in our prayer life, you say, oh, the distractions, Well, distractions can be helpful because you can hear that distraction and it's a chance to pray about it. Oh gosh, I need to forgive that person. Or gosh, I need to rethink that thing I said. And here's another one of our ancestors in faith. I don't know if you've ever heard of the author of The Cloud of Unknowing, or a book called The Cloud of Unknowing. English, 14th century, Middle English. The author, probably a monk. But one of the methods that he gives, I love this, and I put it in the book, is to use a one-syllable word, just a one-syllable word in your prayer life. God, peace, love. And then the surprising one, he says, is sin. And you go, well, why would I want to, why would I meditate on sin? But that can open you up to some of those things you need to let go because they're getting in the way of that connection you're trying to make. I don't know if that's helpful, but does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I know focusing on, more akin to In Your Silence, God specifically, because I know there, like I was saying, the Hindu and Buddhist ways might say you're the universe, you're God, be part of this, and that's what I think, what I was trying to avoid, or what people, I do think there is separation there though, isn't there? There's a new age meditation that I'm trying to get at, and isn't there's a Christian roots origin meditation. I think the Catholic Church have said, I'm just saying the Catholic Church because I'm from Ireland, but they have been kind of pushing against that meditation, which I found strange because it looked to me, I always go back to the book, to the word for my guidance, because there's a lot of additions and things like that I haven't found, that churches have adopted. But so I can see Jesus going up into the mountains here, going across the river, disappearing by himself, and and praying this, even in the Garden of Gethsemane, or we're told he did this, right to the end. So I'm thinking, this is working. This is making me feel better. I'm in my space. It's making me more appreciative. And like you said, it's clearing the head. It's catching up on your thoughts almost as well as meditation. But I am also mindful that there are some negative meditation methods. Am I right in saying that, or am I wrong?
The I really am speaking mostly from personal experience, so I can't find the negatives. I you know Because if you're a person of faith, when you get silent, you cannot help but be present with God, because who else is there? It's God's presence. So you hear something. There's these different apps. I don't like to use those meditation apps because it's too much noise. But my soul waits for thee in silence. That language of the Psalms. We can use it to then listen to ourselves and then also to God. I just I don't want to be critical of someone else, and I'd love to see how what you found can also connect, because your faith seems so deep and vital, man, friend. It's so present in you. It's really thrilling.
Oh, I appreciate that.
No, that's great, and it's inspired you to do exactly this, which is a gift to so many people. So I guess what I would say is my calling is to say, okay, you're going to hear the podcast, and then my feeling about prayer is to have a time every day and a place, not just a time, but a place too. Because the place will remind you, oh yeah, this is my time with God. Yeah. Those outside stimuli will internally, stimulate you.
It's probably, it'd be great to set aside, I'm at the moving into the new house, and I'm trying to find that room of silence, that corner where you can do that. And I have 3 young kids, so it can be difficult sometimes, but I even just barely found this room to speak to you today. I still have to work on that. But I resonate with what you're saying. I do, because when you say that who else is there, you instantly connect almost, because I do a bit of running and a bit of cycling, but lately the kind of trails and mountain biking I've been really enjoying. And part of it is that nature. It's that, when I became more Christian, the colors of these leaves came alive a lot more, and my appreciation. And, I often stop off the bike and I say, wow, that's amazing. I have to give thanks for that, because I often say, protect us today, because mountain biking can be dangerous. I say that, please protect us, please keep us safe. And then you stop sometimes and go, that's amazing. I appreciate being here. And Ireland's lovely for that kind of thing. I know lots of other parts of the world are, but it has a lot of scenic routes, and there's places you can go that are very recluse. But I get what you're saying, that you're instantly there with God, because who else is there? And I do get that. But I wanted to ask you a bit about something that I've seen crop up. You, in the past years, have had maybe an intense, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but an intense fear of death. Would I be right in saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I wanted to just ask where that came from. What did you learn from it at all?
Well, I think there's the fear, and remember, fear not is one of the most frequently used phrases in the Bible, in Scripture. Fear not. I often hold that in my head. Said, fear not, just believe. There it is. Just believe. But there's a gift to it. What I found is to be reminded of our mortality. We're not here forever. And mortality in our faith. How can we? There's a whole other part of life that we're not going to be able to get here on earth. So the gift of mortality. So those reminders of death can be lovely gifts of our sense of mortality and what we can do with our lives. I love that line. John Wooden, he's a basketball coach from UCLA back in the day. Make each day your masterpiece. Make each day your masterpiece. I think of what you're doing, like when a mountain bike and you stop and you look at the tree and you're seeing it. You've gone by that tree zillions of times, but you're suddenly seeing it for all the magnificence that's there. That, not for nothing did, Jesus say, consider the birds of the air and the lilies of the field, we witness the magnificence. It connects you to the Creator.
I just, you're saying that my uncle would be happy that you mentioned that verse. He's always talking about that verse to me, and lately, but that's interesting. But I think it is true, and I wanted to see though. Sorry, can you hear me? It's a bit choppy there. It must be my side of things. Yeah, you can hear me great.
Yeah, I did. Fine.
Yeah, I did. I do want to go down this way. I think you learn stuff as you go, and I've been growing in my faith, and I think, I haven't been to church in a while, and I still do want to fix that, because even though my issue was with, say, it's all Catholic church around me, and I had an issue with the institution, and that's why I went back to the Word, and I said, like I said, I had this experience. It's not unlike meditation or a spiritual experience, and it made me think. Really, I called on Jesus in the time of despair, and he showed up, and by using his name. And I think there was a lot of bad energy around me, and it was kind of spiritually attacking me. I felt, and I felt like that it was gone, and it happened again, like that it was gone, and then I was being drawn places. I remember was one day being drawn to a church, and this church, something about it came on the radio. Someone stopped me when I got out of my car, asking where it was. I went up to cook some food in the kitchen, turned on my phone to look up the church, and there was a live feed, and the priest was saying, if anyone's listening in, come on down. There's just so many things pulling me in the front door. There's people spilled outside it. Someone took me by the shoulder and said, there's one seat left for you, son. And he walked me into an overflowing church, and there was one seat there. And I gained so much from that one night. It led me on a whole different direction, probably this direction. And I couldn't deny these things pulling me out. And I think that's the same kind of principles we're talking about, that stopping to listen, because there's a guiding voice there. If you don't listen, if you're too preoccupied with work and entertainment or distractions, you don't see that other side to life. I think you can go about your job, and it's expedient, it pays the bills, but I think we're called for a second job of getting the word out there or doing something meaningful. And this is my attempt to do it by speaking to you tonight. This is my version of it this week, and I think that's something that's undeniable. But it's not something you can turn and say to someone, well, this is evidence of faith, and how this has happened. It's circumstantial, it's personal, and I think if anyone stops and takes that time to ask, like I did, you don't ever hear people saying, well, I sat there and asked and nothing happened. I have never heard of someone saying that. I just heard of people saying, nonsense, don't want to talk about it. And that's interesting. Like, have you come across much defense or aggravation towards what you do within your own friends or family circle?
Maybe it's so funny to have written a book called Silence is Praise. Maybe silence is, I don't want to hear about it. But what you've experienced is the Spirit, it sounds like, and you've responded to the Spirit, and you've made yourself open to it. So I can only say what I say, and trust and listen to the feedback I get, like you're giving me now, which is helpful. But wherever two or more are gathered, I am there with you. And here, I don't know if Jesus meant cyberspace, but I think, I think it works. The need for Christian community is really important. I mean, Jesus didn't do it all by himself. He surrounded himself with disciples and gave them, the commission to go on and do this. He didn't leave a book behind. He didn't leave, a building behind. He left people. And I think that's how we continue to live out our faith, through the goodness and the knowledge and the wisdom that people give us, especially when, like you, they're following the Spirit. Not just listening to it, but following it. Okay, I will go there. I will make that call. I will listen to that podcast. I will turn off my phone for a while. I will sit and pray every morning.
Do you feel as though, I know you're saying you came from a faithful home, and sure, that gave you the basis to continue that on. But you hear of a lot of people who don't continue that on and who are sick of it, when they come out of that type of home. Do you feel as though there was also the guiding spirit there that brought you down this road to write this book? What, when you left home and you went to college or the work, what was there, something pulling you back to do this? Because I know you wrote for the magazine.
There's that wonderful thing, Guideposts. Yeah.
Guideposts.
There's that that phrase, that Jesus says, the one who doesn't hate his mother, brother, sisters, wife, children, and even hate his own life cannot follow me. And we hear that and go, what is he saying? There you are with your 3 kids. But I think what that is that's letting that go. And I think in your faith journey, you receive, messages of faith, but then you have to find something that's your own, that's not exactly just parroting somebody else's, doctrine. God gives us this chance to then claim our own. So this, leaving mother, leaving father behind, leaving, family behind. I don't think it's necessarily about physically leaving them as much as psychologically letting those, those things go, so that you can be mature in your faith and have your own faith, not just something that somebody told you, but something that your own. And that's what you've discovered, my friend.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because, that particular verse of the Bible, where you leave your home, I think that's akin to adolescence. You usually have, when you're living under your parents, they tell you what to do, they're guiding you. All of a sudden you're out in the world, what guides you? And I think that's when you need to find what's going to guide you and what's going to make you become the man or woman you're going to be. What you live for. And I'm thinking now of our current environment. Even silence is prayer. Did you release this book particularly? Have you timed this? Do you think this is going to be particularly helpful in this time of fear, where people feel a bit? Because I know fear can be immune suppressive. It can get right to your core. Did you time it this way, and do you think it's going to have particularly good benefits for releasing now?
I didn't time it. If it was timed, it was God who timed it. But I believe as a writer and editor, you write what you feel called to write. The rest is outside of our control. The last 2 years of dealing with the pandemic and all the fears, accompanying that. Most of this book I wrote before then. So, so I think it's what I just trust is that I'm called to do this, and I'm, have the pleasure of being called to communicate with you. But I'm strategic, my friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I do think that things are timed perfectly sometimes, aren't they? I often talk about it on the podcast. Sometimes you look back at things and say, well, that couldn't have happened at a more perfect time. Even if at the time it felt like this is taking ages to happen. but when it lands right. If it's something meaningful, I'm not talking about when the ball
Yeah.
bounces the right way or anything. I'm talking about, like likes of dropping a book that's influential at a time when people need it. Um,
Yeah.
and I think, your book also talks a bit about kind of a therapeutic side to meditation, like forgiveness and acceptance. How would one go about that? Do you have techniques where, I'm trying to think of, there's one thing when people think of meditation, think of sitting upright in silence by themselves. Why is it important to grow in the areas of forgiveness and acceptance?
Those are the hardest areas to grow in. It's like, and yet those are the most valuable. We're called to be loving people. Remember, Jesus said, "Love your enemies." Wow, how do I do that? But I don't think it's anything I can do on my own. I really need God's help to do it. To be compassionate, to be understanding, that takes some guidance, and support. So often, when we have fear, for instance, the Bible makes it clear the opposite of fear isn't courage, being strong. The opposite of fear is love. Perfect love casts out fear. So connecting to that is the healing method. And how it happens, it's a mystery to me. Mm-hmm. But the work of just sitting in God's presence is the work that I have to do.
Yeah, because that can be difficult, forgiveness, and acceptance, even of yourself, but I definitely think people don't work on it enough, and I do remember, I was listening to a guided meditation before, and it was kind of like you said, talked a lot, spoke a lot, and I was trying to get used to it. It's harder to relax, I think. But it was talking about some term Sinosha. I'm not sure. It was trying to accept yourself for who you are, and not be always uncontent. Try to be content with where you are, because I think we're always trying to get ahead of life. You want to get to, in a couple of months, that'll free up, and you always think about this period that's not going to be busy, get lots of stuff done, and I can't wait to get there. And just the same thing I did with the prayer, just trying to be appreciative of every day, not burning the daylight to the weekend. And I think maybe meditation helps with that, doesn't it? It helps ground you again. I would ask you, would there be any foods or herbal teas or any kind of thing that you find clears you mentally before you pray? Do you have any particular preparation yourself?
No, I do it all on an empty stomach. But it's so funny that how churches always have coffee hour. I was thinking, well, maybe coffee is the influence, the bread and the wine, for a reason, to connect to that. But yeah, what you're talking about, loving yourself, remember, it's love your neighbor as yourself. That as yourself, don't lose that. Mm-hmm. We love our neighbor as ourselves. We have to love ourselves to be able to love our neighbors. Writing sometimes can help. Just all those things we're grateful for. I mean, when I've been sort of agitated, I take out a notebook and write down things I'm thankful for. Thankful, be thankful in all things, as Paul says. So do I have a recipe? I love the idea that would be, no, but if there is something that you do every day and you connect that hot cup of coffee or that hot cup of tea is also there in my prayer time, it will help you, that physical reminder to be the emotional reminder.
And getting kind of technical about it, are you doing this once a day? Are you doing it for 10 minutes? Are you if someone was to start from, just start from scratch, they want to just find a place, and they want to know, how often do I do it? When do I do it? How many times a day? For how long? Do I meditate on a passage of scripture? Do I sit in silence and see what props up in my subconscious and my conscious mind?
It's two things I would say. The most important thing is doing it every day. So if you all you have is 10 minutes a day, great. But make sure it's happening day after day, because we grow in this, and it's by doing. It's like you're mountain biking, you're getting better, until you get my age, and then, but so it's doing the everyday thing, and then, a small verse of scripture, if that will help you, using that, maybe an image to hold in your head, maybe like the author of Unknowing said, peace, love, sin, Christ, just holding those words. Each day, sometimes it's a different thing that I need to use, but I always have sort of my Bible close by me as I'm sitting on my sofa, so I can go right from the beginning. Here's a passage. I'll use that. And then that's my entry.
Prayer and meditation, they're very similar things. It's bringing you to a silence kind of state, a spiritual state. And in saying that, is there anything that we do, that people do on a daily basis, that breaks our link to that spiritual state? Like, I know particularly if I don't pray, or if I don't actively work on what I should be following, if I don't actively follow the Spirit, like we were saying, I feel that separation from Christ, that personal separation. And I know it's there, and things don't go as well as I hope they go. And I sometimes have to refocus and reconnect. Is there things that you found or go against that spiritual link from meditation that we do on a daily basis?
Well, I often say, we talk about the distractions. I think we're meant to. Sometimes I will sit there and I thought, oh, geez, I've been half an hour and I've just been worried about money. I've been worried about all those things, and then I go, wait, but I did this in the presence of God. I did all that worrying, and then it's sort of, you catch and release. I released it to God, so that sets me up for the rest of the day. So don't be too self-critical. You have days where you check into a mystical thing. That's not what's really important. It's just being present. It's just being present.
I spoke to, I'm not sure if you know this person, J. Warner Wallace, Detective J. Warner Wallace, who wrote, he was my last guest on the podcast, and he was the homicide detective who investigated the Gospels, like Nobody Homicides. You probably heard of him, have you? But anyway, he said to me, I asked him, we're talking about the youth leaving the church and the issues, and we're trying to get down to why it was happening. And I said, does the church need to evolve to, this monotone, just the word of God, close it, stand up, sit down. And, I know people find that boring. Younger people do find it boring, especially here in Ireland. There's no conversation. There's no interaction with who's sitting there. I said, does it need to be more relatable? Do they need to change things? And he said, they don't need to change things. They don't need to evolve. They need to return to something ancient. And he was touching on also this, ancient church that Christ had built before the Romans took it over. This scrolls and meditation and family and connectivity. And there is churches popping up that are much like that. They read a Bible verse and they say, yes, how does this relates to your life in this way, and they talk about how Moses, and they relate it, and people get it, and they're much more involved. Jordan Peterson does this also, his biblical lectures. He says, how does that relate in your life, and I'm wondering, like, the problem is the church, the mainstream churches don't do that. what would it take to get them to take on what you're preaching here? The meditation way of praying. How is it too much of a task to convince them that people will get a great benefit from this? I know they're probably touching on it, and there is moments of silence in church. Probably not enough of them. I think you're more nervous of knowing when to kneel down when the time comes, and sit down instead of stand up, and respond the right line of response when they close this chapter. Is it too big a task to do? Because I can see a massive benefit if they took on some of that meditation.
Yeah, I would say trust your heritage, trust what's there in the scriptures, trust the traditions that go back to a couple thousand years. And then those of us who are doing it can only end up in our prayer life bringing more to our practice. I mean, you change the world one person at a time, not through So we are those one people at a time, you and me, and God only knows who else.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like you're I guess the analogy of picking the cross up and stepping forward uphill, it's a tough road. And I think Christ alludes to that, you're not going to have it easy as a Christian, but very true as well is, when the world hates you, know that it hated me first, and I think, you need to meditate on verses like that. There's one thing I really noticed when I asked my nana, very religious woman, she's passed now, when I had my conversion experience, I rang her up and I said, I need to get a couple of things, a Bible, and I want to get, for some reason, this stuck out in my head. That portrait of Jesus, I trust in you, that all kind of, it's an iconic one, and you hang it in your home. And she said, will you let me get these two things for you? And I said, of course, and so she gave me a New Testament, and she gave me that picture, and it's the first picture I hung up when I moved into my new house. And when I read it, I was blown away by these one-liners by Christ. Like, this guy is super intelligent. This is that's such a statement. Even that statement where you said a minute ago, where two people are gathered. When you think about that, and my son often goes to bed and he's afraid of the dark, and we say a prayer together. And I said to him, where two people are gathered, I am there. When you think about, how literal that might be, if you feel that connection, it's a stunning thing to say. And I know he said lots of amazing verses in there. But more to my point, where was my point? Sorry, my little girl is waking me up at all hours these last few days, and I'm losing my track.
Yeah.
But
no. What I'm hearing, and as I'm playing I'm remembering my father, listening to my prayers and kissing me in bed tonight. So think of the gift that you're giving, because your kids, when they grow up, are going to remember, no matter where their journey takes them, at heart, they're going to remember how Dad did that at night. So that's a blessing. I'm hearing my lunch in the other room. So
ready to go.
yeah, look, my friend. But it's
Rick, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me. I'm looking forward to your book release, Even Silence is Praise, and I wish you well, and hope maybe we'll get to speak again in the future.
Sure. God bless. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Rick. Talk to you again.